Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Home Video Library. I'm your host Nathan P. Butler, author of a saga on home video, available in its second edition 3-volume set now on Amazon. And we are taking a look here at another of our top 5 lists. And this is one that was actually kind of tough to narrow down. It probably could have been longer. It could have been a lot longer. But this is one of those that falls under the negative side. I know, trying to do more positive ones in the future once I kind of get a good feel for what stands out to me as the most positive counterpoints to some of these lists. But we're looking at the top 5, in my opinion at least, worst Star Wars home video packages. Like, the packaging itself. Not the item inside. The item inside could be fantastic, but packaging-wise, these were some really, really bad packaging decisions. In my opinion, I'm sure your opinion may diverge. If so, if you got other stuff that you think might be on the list, if you were putting a list like this together, feel free to stick them in the comments. But what we're looking at here is, again, stuff where the content may have been fantastic, but the packaging left, to put it mildly, a lot to be desired. It was crap, or at least it was really bad, or there was something about it that just sucked. Make sense? All right, let's dive straight in. We're going to start out with number 5, which actually got to show up on our recent irrationally disappointing list. But this part certainly is a rational form of disappointment, and that is the Clone Wars Seasons 1 through 5 Collector's Edition on Blu-ray. Oh wait, maybe this isn't it. Maybe this is the Blu-ray. I don't know, because here we go. Blu-ray and DVD, both in the same packaging, with absolutely nothing at all on the packaging itself to distinguish which is which once they are on your shelves. Now, you open them up, obviously you'll see different content inside. DVD packaging versus the Blu-ray packaging. Which one is this? I literally have no idea, but if I pull it up, yep, that's the DVD one because it's the DVD-sized cases. That means this one must be the Blu-ray. I open up the magnetic flap. I do the little pull. Yep, there they are, Blu-ray cases. But if you just have these closed on your shelves, unless you purposely put them away in a certain order, you have no idea which is which. The only way to tell which is which would have been to leave them in their original shrink wrap, because when they're in shrink wrap, yes, I kept them, they have J cards on them. And for DVD, it was simply a side with an image, a side with another image, but it did say DVD here. And whereas there was nothing to fold over on the front, it just went over the top, the back did note DVD and showed you the content inside here. Contains all 108 episodes of the hit series on 19 discs, which is also a nice clue there as well. DVD video, and so on, right? So the DVD version, I don't even know which this is that I just grabbed, will be sitting on a store shelf like this. But then when you get home, this is gone. It's nice art, but there's no way to tell which version it is. Whereas if you were looking at the store shelves for the Blu-ray version, kind of similar, you have a Blu-ray part that actually folds over. The side doesn't have a Blu-ray symbol down here, but has that whole blue Blu-ray symbol area up at the top. And then the back gives you Blu-ray down in the bottom corner. The stats, of course, relate to it, and so on. So, yeah, if you found these in a store, it's no big deal. You know which is DVD, you know which is Blu-ray, because the J card's on it. As soon as you get it home, though, you can't tell the difference. Now, maybe they were just expecting most people won't be, foolish collectors like me and pick up both because they're completists. But, yeah, whether they just didn't think ahead enough or not, still not a great design decision. Something on each one should have identified what format it was. And in case you're wondering, even the product number on the bottom is the same for each, because the boxes are literally identical. That brings us to number 4, which is a great example of one of those items that, like I said, has some great content to it, but the packaging design itself just kind of sucked and leaves much to be desired. That is the 1997 VHS limited edition collector's set for the Star Wars Trilogy Special Edition, which we've looked at before, quite early in this series. I'm reticent to hold it vertically here. You take the top slipcover off, you have this nice interior box with multiple layers. You have a layer here for the exclusive VHS inside and the paperweight that is inside. You lift that off. I have the original backing in here. But you've got an envelope full of some extra goodies, and you have a nice little layer here with the widescreen editions of the films. And remember, this is that weird situation where these widescreen versions of the films don't have the little behind-the-scenes video about what makes a special edition so special, because those are actually combined into what's on this VHS. So these are kind of variant versions of the widescreen cassettes. All really nifty. The problem is the tray. This is a velvet liner. It's really nice. It holds this nice, heavy, limited edition, individually numbered paperweight. Problem is, when you store this vertically, which is how almost anyone is going to store a box set like this velvet area, it's just velvet. It's squishy. It's like foam with velvet on it or something, right? So over time, I've seen numerous sets where this has been sitting in here, and over time, just the weight of this slowly eats away and erodes the area around it. It keeps squishing it down, and it tears the velvet. So instead of this nice velvety backdrop to the piece when it's sitting in here, it's all torn up around the edges, and there's gray foam and stuff that's visible. Just a really nice design for anyone who's going to store it horizontally. It's like they designed it so that it would look neat when you open it, but they designed it such that after a while, storing it vertically, as again, most people do, it's going to wind up damaged on the inside. They didn't think long-term with the packaging here. That's why I store this one, which was, I think, my third copy of this thing. I store this one, the one that I've got that wasn't torn up. I store this one horizontally because, yeah, it is way too common now to see this one with the ripped velvet because of that paperweight and a poor design decision. Nice looking, but poor from a longevity standpoint. That brings us to number 3, which is one of the reasons why this is not limited to US releases, and that is this Laserdisc set coming out of France. Okay, this is the collector's edition. It's kind of their version of the definitive collection, but not really. What's interesting about this, though, is how you get everything out of this thing. So basically, you've got like this tray kind of thing here. Okay? And so you've got those slanted edges, and one pair of edges is actually the ends of a tray. And you have to push it out to get to the stuff that's on the inside. The problem is the way these cardboard edges are constructed, and the fact that this thing does bend down just a little bit because there's not enough stuff in there to push it all the way up, so there's not scraping, I guess, leads to a lot of times these corners just ripping and tearing, okay? So if you're going to store it like this, it's still a pain in the ass because it's going to tend to take some very, very cautious opening and closing, or you're going to wind up damaging the edges on this thing with these weird pyramidal type corners. Moreover, try storing this sucker vertically. You can't lay it flat. So it goes stored like this, or I guess technically you could do it the other way around, but that'd be even more stupid, because that puts even more pressure on these. It's just one of those designs that it's designed to look neat initially, but from a practical standpoint, it's just a bad choice of design. It's easily damaged, and it doesn't sit upright, even if you wanted to sit it upright. No, bad call. That brings us to number 2, which would be number 1 if it wasn't for the fact that I kind of have a number 1 that I think just is frustrating as hell if you're a home video collector, but which would not be frustrating for someone who is not a home video collector. So keep that in mind, that this could have been number 1, but my number 1, just for me and my pet peeve as a home video collector specifically, does trump this one. You may recall that if you got the Phantom Menace on VCD in Hong Kong, there was a couple different versions of it. But there were these nice cases, right? You had the discs inside jewel cases. You stuck the jewel cases inside the container. It closed. It was a nice box here, nice and solid on every side. Not so in Malaysia, where they took a really half-assed approach to this, where I'm assuming the packaging was meant to simply be thrown away. But for a collector, doesn't want to throw that kind of stuff away and wants to have the full product, your options are basically be very careful with a product that falls apart at the slightest touch, or keep it in the original shrink wrap. This is the Malaysian version. And remember, what is this? Nothing on top, nothing on bottom, nothing on the side. It's a frickin' piece of folded cardstock. That's all that it is. The discs are in the nice jewel cases, but this is your outer packaging. There is no top, there is no bottom, there is no side. It is literally a piece of cardstock to stick it in and fold around it that holds it when it's in shrink wrap, or maybe in some kind of protective cover if such a thing exists for something like this. But just sitting on your shelf these days, pick it up without squeezing it in the right place and out fall the jewel cases, because there's nothing to hold it in. It's not a package, it's a wrapper. It's not even a good wrapper. Like, if this is M&M, this is Vanilla Ice. And finally, we come to my number one most frustrating, worst packaging example of a Star Wars home video item. And again, I will say this is almost a bit of a cheat, because it is something that I, as a home video collector, find incredibly frustrating and a really stupid design if it's for collectors who want to access the home video item and yet keep the product essentially intact. Whereas for someone who doesn't care about keeping it intact, or someone who collects it for other reasons, or someone who buys it for other reasons, may not find it frustrating at all. But from a home video collector perspective, this takes the cake as the crappiest packaging, and really in often cases, the most painful packaging, because you can actually hurt your fingers trying to access this thing. That is a mini DVD called Force Tech Training. So what is Force Tech Training? We've covered it on the show. It is a little DVD that comes in this. This is the Anakin Ultimate FX lightsaber. I'm assuming it also came with other ones, but you almost never see it, so I've yet to find other examples of it, but this is the one that I've got. The Ultimate FX lightsaber. Okay? The lightsaber itself is a toy, so presumably you're meant to just open it up, tear everything out, take the toy out, play with it, not actually keep anything in the actual packaging. But where is the home video item? You can see it right here. What they have done is at the bottom of this, there is a piece of reflective cardboard, like cardboard with this reflective silvery surface that just kind of folds onto the back to give you a nice, shiny, reflective backdrop to the saber blade, right? Which I believe you can turn on. Yeah, it's got the battery already built into it. Fancy schmancy. Turn it off. Off! Okay. But you notice here that basically what you've got is that plastic, that shiny reflective surface actually has a clear plastic layer on it. So the disc itself is on top of its jacket. And disc and jacket are both in a form-fitted plastic layer, plastic cover layer, that basically just goes, there's the disc, and just continues on. And it's just back here in that very, very thin area where it's almost impossible to get to. The only way you can get to it without opening the entire package, basically, is to open up from the top, take out the instructions, the little, like, plastic cover thing that's here on the end, which is difficult to get to without damaging it, because I don't want to damage it to get it out of here. There we go. And now you've got access to that layer of plastic, and there it is. The only way to access it, if you're not going to open the whole thing, is to take a knife and slit along the edge of the packaging here, lift it up ever so slightly, and grab both disc and jacket, preferably jacket first, then disc, so it's less likely to damage it, and slide them out of the hole. Or slit it, lift it up, and just kind of shake it until it fully slides out. Okay? It is extremely difficult to get it out without damaging it. And someone's going to say, well, just take it out. You don't want to keep it inside, you fool. That's what I said a moment ago, right? Not everybody's going to be bothered by this packaging design decision because most will simply rip it open and take the stuff out and not care about the original packaging. But for a home video collector who is a completist, who wants to have everything in its nicest form, just having the disc and the jacket may be okay, but for many, maybe it won't be. In my case, I wanted to have the original material, the original product it was in with the item. And unless you can find a second one of these to have one that's loose and one in the packaging, when these are incredibly hard to find just by themselves, let alone finding multiple copies of them, this is your option. And getting to it requires a knife, hurting your fingers probably, risking damaging the item and more, because they just decided to make that disc and its jacket about as hard as you could possibly get to actually get to it while maintaining the integrity of the actual item itself. Really, really poor design decision from an accessibility standpoint. When it's on the shelf, it looks really nice to be able to see it behind the little sticker that says there's a DVD, though. Nice and reflective. Again, great for the shelf, not so great with the practicality unless you're just going to rip it apart. So for me, those are the top 5 poorly designed packages for Star Wars home video releases. I'm sure there are plenty more of them that we could address. There are plenty more that I see around me, but I just didn't fit them into the top 5. Again, if you have any thoughts on your top 5 poorly designed packages, not content, but packages for Star Wars home video items, feel free to drop them in the chat. Should be an interesting discussion to behold. With that, we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the home video viewers.